In today's episode, I want to talk about the difference between news and noise. What's the difference between news and noise? Especially at this present time where the news is quite scary and anxiety-inducing and can be really overwhelming, and there's a temptation to stay in the news cycle to find out what exactly is going on. And I know certainly myself, I noticed over the past week or so that I've been diving into the news much more regularly than I would typically do. More than several times a day, sometimes several times a morning. And it wasn't doing me any good, I have to say. It was making me feel very anxious and panicky, and sure, it is difficult times at the moment with everything that's going on out there. And yet, it wasn't doing me any good, as I said, just kind of being immersed in this. And so the last couple of days I've taken a step back out, and while I'm having a very light touch and checking in, maybe once a day, I'm checking in so briefly that sometimes it literally lasts several seconds. And the reason I'm doing this is because I reminded myself that there is actually a difference between news and noise. And so I want to explain what that difference is as I see it between what you could safely call news and what you could call noise. You see, there's lots of things that are happening at any time, and the vast majority of them don't really imply any action. You see, the old purpose of news, going back to kind of medieval times, was that there would be a player of some sort who would come and bring a lute or some musical instrument and sing some songs that would let villagers that were far apart know what was going on in the world. And it was important for them to know what was going on in the world, because if King John and his forces were coming this way, for instance, and might be headed to your village, then there might be some action that you need to take in order to look after yourself. And so that was the quality that news had. It was kind of like, listen, here's what you need to know, because once you know this, you'll want to do something different. And what I notice about the news is that the vast majority of it, even on something that is impactful to us, doesn't have that quality at all. The vast majority of it doesn't imply any action of us. It's just stuff that we can get immersed in that is anxiety-inducing. And so if you think of the news that way, when I think of the news that way, in fact, I notice that the most important, significant aspect of news on any given day will typically be the weather forecast. Because when I look at the weather forecast, if it's raining, I know to put my waterproof coat on. And if it's sunny, I know to put my t-shirt on. So that information actually informs me in such a way that it helps me decide what I do next. It implies an action from me. Whereas, I don't know, if I see a news report about something where it doesn't imply an action from me, then that's just noise. And when it's just noise, that doesn't mean you can't immerse yourself in the noise if you want to, just like anything else. But at least if we recognise that it is noise, we've got a choice then. Do we pay attention to the noise, or do we find something else to listen to? And what I've noticed over these last couple of days is the moment that I took the decision that I'd had enough news, that I'd had enough information to inform what I was going to do in this current situation, then I realised that the more I was in the noise of it, the less happy I was, the more it was impacting my emotional well-being, I suppose. And so I stepped away. And so I'm hoping you'll find this a helpful distinction as well. What is noise and what is news? Noise is the stuff that doesn't have any impact on what you will do next. And news is information that will feed into what you do next. So if you've got children, for instance, it's news that the schools are closing. And if you don't have children, then it probably isn't. If you're trying to figure out whether you need to kind of stay indoors or go out, then news is going to help in that. If you're wondering what the financial package might be for those who have been hit by the current situation, then that's news. But I think you'll find that about 97% of it isn't. And so if you're feeling as though your well-being has really taken a hit, just check whether you're immersed in the news in the way that I was a couple of days ago. And check for yourself, is the news that you're immersed in really news? Or is it noise that you could actually step away from and do yourself some good? Because you won't be losing any information that's essential to what you do next. And then you've actually got a choice, whether you want to watch this stuff, read this stuff, or whether you would rather focus your attention on something which made you less panicky, less jumpy, less anxious, less miserable. And so that's what I've done. And so again, I check in on the news, but I check in very briefly. I look at the headline and I'm gone again. And if the headline looks like it might imply an action from me, it might be some information that will actually inform what I have to do next, then I'll dive in and get to know what it is. But mostly I notice I just jump straight back out again, and I'm safe to only check the news once a day for about 6 seconds. Since I did that, I feel a hell of a lot better. I'm able to just focus on the stuff that my mind would more typically focus on and ignore the noise, because it was noise that was really making me quite miserable and depressed and anxious and panicky. So I hope this has been helpful, just making that distinction between news, information that will actually inform what you might do next, and noise, which doesn't, and help you realise that you can actually stay informed without getting lost in this stuff, without getting immersed in it, and therefore use your attention to do something which is going to aid your well-being more instead. So if you find this distinction, and I know that I certainly have, please feel free to send it to your friends and family. You can also subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. It's completely free. If you'd like to watch the videos of these, then you can simply go to asliceoftherapy.com and that will take you to the YouTube channel. And if you'd like to work with me direct, I'm Alun Parry. I'm the director of the Liverpool Psychotherapy practice, and you'll find me at liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk. So thanks for listening. Hope it's helped, and I'll see you tomorrow.